A very good Tuesday morning to you, and I hope I find you very well indeed on what is here in Manchester a pretty much nondescript kind of day, very calm, overcast. So I have no idea what it's going to do today, but we shall see. I've been away for a few days, found myself very, very busy over the weekend, so apologies for not being around. What I want to talk about today is something that's kind of been troubling me over the last week or so, because I've been watching quite a lot of videos regarding very high-end watches, and I've kind of been thinking that when we're talking about the differential between you're looking at your low-end watches and your very high-end watches, given the fact that, and this is where I'm going to ask you to suspend all your bias and your fanboyism or fangirlism about certain things and any snobbishness that may be floating around in the background. So try and suspend that if you can. That when we get down to the nuts and bolts of it all, when we're looking at a wristwatch, under normal circumstance, now take out of the equation your ceramics and your precious metals here, what we're looking at is a lump of stainless steel. We are looking potentially at little bits of aluminium. We are looking at different colour dials. We are looking at different styles of fingers. We are looking at slightly different designs of clasps. And we are looking at cogs, wheels, springs and weights inside a case. And that's all we're looking at. Every watch is made up of all those components. So when you're looking at those components, you start asking yourself, well, what the hell am I paying for when I go down the route of the upper part of the market, the Omegas and the Rolexes and that kind of thing of this world? Why am I paying, thousands of pounds and dollars and euros for these things when I can get a watch in the hundreds of pounds that's made from the same materials? Now, obviously, when you get into a conversation on forums or you get into a conversation with somebody face-to-face who is as mad about watches as you are, the old favourite comes out, well, of course, what you're paying for is the history of the watchmaker, how long they've been doing it, where they're based, the craftsmanship involved, and so on and so forth. So, as it says in the title, my question is this: when will watchmaker history become a thing of the past? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if we kind of take out, I guess, what was the Holy Trinity, but what is now kind of the Holy Foursome, as it were, which is, AP, PP, VC, and A Langasona. If we ignore them, put them in a nice little gift box and put them to one side for now. And let's assume this. Over the next 25 years, as everything tends to do, watchmaking technology and how we produce the parts and the small measurements are put into place using CNC machines and so on and so forth. There's not the vagaries anymore of a little man sat at a bench with his files and his loop, and he's making all these things by hand. All these things are made to the highest quality on CNC machines, so the quality is of a standard. So over the next 25 years, can we safely assume that, apart from the top of the tree, that standards will kind of level out slightly? Because if we look kind of at a graph where, down here you've got your cheapo stuff, and then slowly it goes up and up and up and up and up until we reach, your Rolex and your Omegas and your Zeniths of this world and so on and so forth. Now, over those years where machines take over and the quality becomes a standard throughout the industry. And what was this kind of graph moving upwards is all of a sudden, little variations of a straight line. And maybe when you get to the Omegas and the Rolexes at the end, it goes up just ever so slightly, but it's certainly not as pronounced as it was. So when we get to that point at the end of this quarter of a century, will people then look at watches as being much of a muchness? And what you are buying at the end of the day is the name on the dial. Now, I know a lot of that goes on right now. I appreciate that. You're going to get people who fall into different camps, and that is all they will buy. And because they're in that particular camp, nothing can sway them from saying that the quality of that particular item far outweighs everything else. But as we said at the beginning of the video, we're putting that aside at the 1 minute. So, at the moment, it is quite easy for people to say, yes, but you are paying for the history of the watchmaker. So, in 25 years' time, when things have levelled out and it's a relatively even playing field, all the watches are great quality, all the parts are great quality parts. We know they've all been made by a CNC machine, probably in Asia somewhere, as they are taking over the watchmaking market, as they're taking over every other kind of market. So, what I'm asking here is, will the history of, let's say, Rolex, for now, be as important then? Because as time goes by, the history gets further and further away, of course. And so as you're getting further away and the history of the watchmakers are getting lost in the mist of time, will that become less important? Will we just look at watches as being well-made, well-engineered pieces of magnificent little machines that we wear on our wrist? Is that what will happen? Or is completely the opposite what will happen? Will we only be able to justify an expensive purchase by saying, yes, but this particular watchmaker had a better history, has been around longer, and has been established longer, and it has its own museum, or it's Geneva based, or whatever it is, because there will be no other argument to be made, because we're on this relatively level playing field. Is that what will happen? So we will no longer be able to say the parts are better, it's craftsman made, it's put together in hermetically sealed labs and all that kind of thing. If we do ever get to that point, and then there is no justification for saying, yes, but I bought a Rolex. Will it be that the only argument can people make is that of the horological, and I hate that word, as you know, history is there, but it's so far back then that it has no relevance to today. So that's kind of it. What is it? Will the horological history of a watchmaker become a thing of the past, or will it be the only thing that can justify you spending 10 times as much on a timepiece? Is that the only thing that it can be? And the question is, at that point, if things do level out, of course, and we all know that all the parts are all made on very similar machines in hermetically sealed labs and all that kind of thing, is that enough of a justification? Is it? Would it be enough for you if you were going to spend, £6,000, £10,000 on a Rollie, but you could spend 600 quid on a Steinhardt, for instance, but you know full well, and there is proof that both of the parts in that watch are made in exactly the same way, on exactly the same types of machines? How would you justify this, the 10 times as much? And if it is that Rolex has a longer, more established history, how is that justification for you? How can that be justification? So let me know what you think. Is the history that important, or will it at some point in the future become a thing of the past? Let me know. I think this one's going to be a little bit divisive, as quite a lot of my questions are. I find it quite interesting. My opinion is this, is that if we do ever get back to the level playing field, or get to the level playing field situation, and we are all aware that everything is as good a quality, I say apart from maybe, you know, the top 4 that we've talked about, are we likely to buy the cheaper ones because we know that they're just as good? My opinion is yes. I think we probably will. And I tell you the reason for that is that we're all aware that top flight training shoes, sports shoes, whatever people call them around the world, are generally made in the similar kinds of factories as the same training shoes, court shoes, tennis shoes that you find in your lower end shoe shops or on the markets here in the UK. And all they have is a logo put on them, and everything else about the shoe is very, very, very similar. So hence why I will never buy a branded training shoe. Of course, I never wear them anyway, but you know, I will never buy a pair of shoes, sports shoes, that will cost £150, $200 or whatever. I will never do that. If I wanted a pair of training shoes, I would buy something that maybe cost £30, you know. So there you go. I hope you're with me on this. Let me know your feelings. Is the history enough, or at some point in the future will the history become a thing of the past? Anyway, that's it for this one, people. Sorry I've not been around, as I say. Very, very busy. I will try and catch up this week. Thank you very much indeed to my new subscribers that have arrived over the last 3 or 4 days. Great to see you in the list. I think I've contacted you all. I think there was one of you that I can't get back to, regardless of my best efforts. I do apologise. If you would like my standard note of welcome, which I do like to send, make sure that all your settings allow me to get back to you, and I'll send that out to you. So that's it for this one. As always, all your questions, queries, suggestions, answers to this, your point of view to this, drop them down below. If there's any videos that you'd like to see me do in the future about any kind of subject, I'll try and put my twist on it for you. Drop them down below. And that's it for this one, and I shall speak to you all again very soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.